Imagine it is like 3:15 a.m. in a Malaysian hospital ward. Your mind is racing, a monitor is beeping down the hall, and you haven't sat down in maybe 6 hours.
Oh, yeah, that is a very familiar feeling.
Right. You spend your entire day diagnosing and treating others. But, I mean, if you saw your own vitals and sleep record on a patient's chart, you would probably admit yourself.
You definitely would. It is such a fascinating paradox. We were talking directly to you, our hardworking Malaysian healthcare professionals. You
Hmm.
carry this massive weight of, uncertainty and suffering every single shift.
Yeah, it takes a heavy toll. And today, in this deep dive, we are looking at the book Joe Mindful Jim Now and exploring why the people best equipped to treat mental health are often the worst at treating their own.
Exactly. Because before you can even begin to address your own exhaustion, we really need to look at how your clinical training actually creates a pretty massive psychological blind spot.
I mean, let's talk about that blind spot. As clinicians, we know the diagnostic criteria for major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder by heart.
Right, you can recite them in your sleep.
Yeah, but when our own chests tighten before a brutal ward round, we totally lose all our clinical objectivity. We just write it off as, normal shift stress. Why do our medical brains do that to us?
Well, it is basically because your brain is using your medical knowledge against you.
Wait, really? Using it against us?
Yeah, think about it. You know the physiology of the fight or flight response. You know that a racing heart and hypervigilance are, they are natural physiological adaptations to the intense challenges on the ward.
Sure, they keep us on our toes.
Right, so you rationalize it. You tell yourself it is just normal stress, which, is true initially. Some stress actually keeps you alert during a complex procedure.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here. If I am a house officer on a 36-hour shift, I am going to have a racing heart, zero focus, and severe sleep deprivation. Like, that is literally the job description.
Oh, absolutely. The physical symptoms overlap completely. But the diagnostic pivot isn't the racing heart or the exhaustion itself.
Then what is it?
It is the inability to recover your baseline when you finally clock out. Think about the actual mechanism of burnout.
When the adrenaline just doesn't turn off.
Exactly. When that adrenaline from the ward round never actually switches off, your brain's recovery cycle is physically blocked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when that stress response becomes severe, persistent, and starts impairing your function even off shift, it has crossed the line from a simple physiological response into a clinical disorder.
And because we know the physiology so well, we think we can just outsmart it, right? Which I guess makes admitting we need psychiatric help feel like a massive professional failure.
And that is exactly where the stigma becomes incredibly dangerous. The book shares this really heartbreaking story of a young house officer.
One in the harsh training environment.
Yes, he was constantly facing sharp public corrections on the ward. His unrecovered stress escalated into severe panic attacks and deep depression.
That is so tough.
It really is.
Yeah.
But instead of seeing it as a medical condition, he felt immense shame. He actually resigned from medicine entirely because he was convinced he was just, weak and defective.
That is incredibly tragic. It reminds me of running a code blue.
How so?
Well, the absolute first rule of resuscitation is ensuring your own safety before administering aid. We apply that rule religiously to physical hazards on the ward, but we completely ignore it for our own psychological hazards.
That is such a brilliant analogy. Yes, we demand invulnerability from ourselves. But for that young doctor, the turning point only happened when he finally sought professional psychiatric help.
Because he finally got treated as a patient.
He didn't just get a prescription. He got a doctor who treated him as a human being first and a stethoscope second. He was allowed to simply be a person who was struggling.
And that is when the healing actually started.
Exactly.
So as you head back into your shift, or maybe you finally get a moment to rest, let's ground this in reality. You cannot separate the clinician from the human being.
You really can't. Acknowledging the difference between your body's natural stress response and a clinical disorder isn't a sign of weakness.
Right. It is just good medicine. So we have three main takeaways today. First, stress is a natural response, but it is distinctly different from clinical anxiety and major depressive disorders.
And second, you are a human first, healthcare worker second. Struggling is not a sign of weakness.
And third, remembering that Code Blue rule, self-care is an absolute prerequisite to caring for others.
So please, if your symptoms persist and you cannot find your baseline, seek professional help early. Don't wait until you're completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, don't wait. We want to leave you with a final thought to mull over the next time you feel that tightness in your chest. How much of your current emotional burden is coming from the actual clinical situation in front of you, and how much of it is coming from the harsh story your own mind is telling you about it?